Deafheaven, Infinite Granite, album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning Here to chat out the latest album from Deafheaven, California-based metal titans in a way. These guys in the last 10 years or so have become major acts in the likes of BlackGaze as well as Screamo. As a matter of fact, since their earliest recordings, the Roads to Judah days, they've been seamlessly bringing together the sounds of shoegaze, screamo, black metal, some elements of post-rock too. They did so even more so on their commercial breakthrough album Sunbather. And you know what? They did it wonderfully too. Still to this day, tracks like Vertigo and Dreamhouse absolutely get me hyped. Let me let you guys in on a little secret. I think New Bermuda's even better. Now, their last album, Ordinary Corrupt Human Love, I thought it was good. I thought it was very solid, but at the same time, I worried that Deafheaven kind of needed a little bit of a shift, that they were ready to take a shift as a band to a newer, maybe like slightly different sound. We're certainly getting that here. We knew that leading up to this album, from the singles, that this album was not nearly as nasty and cutting as anything they've released in the past. Let's chat about it. And you know what? It's not all bad. I actually think the album's first track, Shellstar, is actually pretty good. And like I said, let's address the elephant in the room right off the bat. This is not the destructive sound of BlackGaze that they've been giving us for years. This is straight up dreary, gloomy, synth pop, dream pop, and yeah, shoegaze. And for the moment, it's actually pretty okay. I actually like this track quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I think it's pretty anthemic. I think the dream pop elements on this track are great, and yeah, it's just really catchy too. I mean, if you sprinkled this track amongst some of their older ones, or maybe on a newer, heavier album, like maybe if this was a shortened interlude of sorts, I think this actually could work a really nice way. As far as the singles go, I think Great Mass of Color is the best one here. It's upbeat and it's dreamy, and yes, while there is no teeth in sight, I feel like they make up for that here with a very passionate performance. It's moody. It was certainly, inspired by mid-80s alternative bands. Even the more stripped-down portion here works for me. And the final grisly minute is just a breath of fresh air. It's just a really good medium for the band. I think Neptune Raining Diamonds is also really good as well. As a fantastic interlude. I love the dreary atmosphere and just how lonely this instrumental comes off. Like, this is what I mean. If you plopped this in on any of their classic albums, this would be a fantastic interlude. And Villain, I think it's one of the best tracks here. It has a little oomph to it, and from a songwriting stance, it's actually really nice. Once again, this to me is acceptable middle ground. I love the production, the twinkling guitars, this all works. It's not like this is a completely void sound. And the final 2 minutes, some of my favorite moments here. Not for nothing, the Gnashing is pretty great as well. And I will say this, I feel like the vocals are going to be the breaking point for people. You're either going to love them or hate them. Let me tell you, when they are bad on this album, and they get pretty bad at points, they are hilariously bad. They're fine here, though, especially in the second half. I do think this is a winner, though. It's punchy, It's also, it progresses really nicely. But then we get to the rest of this album, and I genuinely think Deafheaven have just taken too much of a leap. We get tracks like In Blur, and this is precisely where I draw the line. This is not anything that I'm interested in. This is dime a dozen shoegaze with no edge and less heart. I don't have a problem with Deafheaven going for a lighter sound. Like I said, there are some tracks on here that are pretty viable, but this is emotionless. And you know what? There's occasionally an interesting atmosphere. I think the production's pretty good, but this track is just not for me. Lamenting for Wasps is even worse. When this album is bad, it is absolutely some of the worst music I've heard all year. This is so lukewarm, and it is so passionless. This is a modern shoegaze nightmare, and when I hear people worry about shoegaze and think that it's out of ideas, I hear tracks like this and say, yeah, maybe it does need a little refreshing again. The hook is also just way too breezy for me. Like I said, leading up to this album, I thought that Deafheaven needed to shift their sound, but this is too much. It's got me pining for everything they've been doing. And look, if it was at least gorgeous and stunning, I would give it a pass, but it doesn't have that. Other Language is a complete flop. Like, the atmosphere, once again, is actually pretty okay. I like the cosmic vibes of this track. but these vocals are flat, and this track doesn't progress at all, and it's over 6 minutes. I couldn't tell you the first thing about it. Even when it picks up for the final minute and a half, I'm just not for it. And Mombasa as a finale, I'm sick and tired of this. You know, this album has not had a lot of teeth or any bite to it. It doesn't have that edge that the early albums from Deafheaven did. But the acoustic strumming throughout this entire track and the overly emotional vocals that have zero passion to them whatsoever are making this completely unbearable. And it's over 8 minutes. You might be into this album, and you know what? There are some good tracks here, but I can't. And yes, eventually you get a few heavier minutes deep into the track, but by now, this album has put me to sleep. So this new album is certainly a shift, but not the shift that I personally was looking for from Deafheaven. And listen, there's some cool tracks here. When they get this shoegaze sound down to a T, it's actually pretty cool. It's got some great atmosphere, some great production. Hell, I'll go one step further. There are tracks on here that if they made a heavier album and dropped some of these tracks in as interludes and short tracks in between heavier jams, I think that could be an absolute knockout. But back to back to back to back to back tracks of this bland shoegaze and dream pop. It's soul-sucking, let me tell you. I'm feeling a decent 5 on this album. Let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.